Hello everyone, this is your educator Priyanka Thakur. I'm teaching you life sciences and welcome you all in our YouTube channel Gurmantra Shiksha Ka Granth. So I have taught you nervous system and now I'm going to talk about sensory organs. So you should know that these sensory organs are like windows of the brain because they keep the brain aware of what is happening on the external in the external world. So we know about a few sense organs, a few sense organs. I mean, the main sense organs in our body: skin, nose, tongue, ear, and eye. Skin for touch, nose for smell, tongue for taste, and ear hearing, eye vision. And the stimuli for touch is pain, cold, pressure. For nose, tongue, smell, taste, it's chemical stimuli. For ear, it's sound stimulus. And for eye, it's light stimulus. So mainly going to talk about eye and the ear. In this video, I'm going to cover eye. We will talk about structure of eye, rods and cones, and what are diffraction abnormalities. So let's start with our today's topic, which is about eye. Eye, as you can see, it's a very complex organ. Okay, I would what exactly it do? We do not have only one, but we have a pair of eyes. Okay, they will gather the information about the environment, and the brain interpret this information to form an image of what appears within the field of vision. Each eye will have receptors, it will have a lens. Okay, this lens that will focus the light on the receptor, and it will have system of nerves that will conduct the impulses to the receptors and then to the brain, from the receptors to the brain. Eye is generally compared to a camera with the cornea that act as a lens. Okay, so pupillary diameter function of the pupillary diameter function like aperture of camera, and the retina serve as the film. Okay, remember this thing: cornea act as the lens, a pupillary diameter function as aperture of camera, and the retina serve as the film. Okay. Okay, let's talk about anatomy of the eye. As you can see, each eye is spherical. It has a fluid. It is a fluid filled structure, and it consists of mainly three wall layers. You cannot see, but I will tell you what are these three wall layers. One is fibrous tunic, other one is vascular tunic, and retina. Okay, when I'm saying fibrous tunic, so fibrous tunic is actually the outer protective layer of the eye wall that will consist of anteriorly cornea, posteriorly its retina. Okay, anteriorly it's what cornea, sorry, not retina, it's sclera. Okay, and as you can see, it's anteriorly this fibrous tunic is cornea, posteriorly it's sclera. Okay, so sclera is actually the white part of the eye. It is this sclera is a dense connective tissue which consists of collagen fibers and fibroblasts. This sclera, it provides us shape and also protects the inner parts of the eye. Uh, uh, Through the sclera, no light can pass. Yeah, remember this thing: no light passes through the sclera, but it is modified on the anterior side of eye into cornea, but light rays pass through the cornea. It is transparent, cornea is transparent, and light rays pass through this cornea. Cornea is what? Transparent coat, and it covers your iris is a colored part of the eye. Okay, and because this cornea is curved, it helps the light, it helps focus light onto the retina. Okay, so its outer part consists of non-keratinized squamous epithelium, and the middle coat of cornea consists of collagen fibers and fibroblasts, while the inner surface of this cornea is made up of squamous epithelium again. So cornea have squamous epithelium on its outer part as well as inner part, but outer part cornea has stratified epithelium, while on inner part it has squamous epithelium. Then comes our second layer, vascular tunic. It is the middle layer, and a choroid, ciliary body. Okay, ciliary muscles have not been mentioned here. Your ciliary muscles and iris form the vascular tunic. These all together, iris, retina, and not iris, sorry, iris, ciliary body, and choroid are together known as uvea. Okay, iris, choroid, and the ciliary body are together known as uvea, and they form the vascular tunic. You understand? As you can see here, choroid is a vascular layer. This choroid will provide the oxygen and nutrient to whole eye. It is the posterior portion of vascular tunic, and it has melanin. It is pigmented with melanin. Okay, it has melanin pigments. Yeah, it provide what? Blood supply and absorbs scattered light. Okay, choroid provide blood supply and it also absorbs scattered light. Okay, fine. I'll show you a detailed structure. This is a detailed structure as you can see here. Okay, this is you can see the ciliary body, the suspensory ligament, iris, cornea. There's this pupil, lens, anterior chamber, posterior chamber of eye, vitreous body. Okay, then central artery and vein, optic nerves, optic disc, which is also known as blind spot, fovea centralis, macula lutea, retina, choroid, sclera. We have already talked about sclera, choroid, retina. Okay, the choroid, we are currently talking about choroid. The choroid layer will form seal. This is the choroid layer. Like, look at it. It will form ciliary body and iris. What it will form? It is located behind where it will form a ciliary body and iris in front of the eye. Iris is the pigmented and colored portion of your eye, and the round opening in the center of the iris through which light can pass, light can enters the interior portion of the eye is what? Pupil. It is pupil. Iris have circular muscles and that constrict and radius muscle that dilate the pupil. Okay, iris have circular muscles that are going to constrict the pupil and the radial muscle that are going to dilate the pupil. Okay, so this iris actually act as diaphragm of a camera, dilating and constricting the pupil and allow more or less light to come into the eye. Okay, so we can say that iris regulates the amount of light that enters the eye. Its muscles, iris muscles, the muscles we just talked about, the circular muscles and radial muscles. Okay, its muscles, they are under the control of autonomic nervous system. Parasympathetic nerve fiber will be supplying to circular muscles. These circular muscles cause pupillary dilation, while sympathetic fibers supply radial muscle, which will cause pupillary dilation. Ciliary body, we can see the ciliary body here, is located behind the iris and it will produce the aqueous fluid that fills the front part of the eye. Remember this thing. The ciliary body will produce the aqueous fluid that will fill the front part of the eye. It has two major components. It has ciliary muscles as well as capillary network that will produce the aqueous humor. Okay, aqueous humor is formed by what? Aqueous humor is formed by ciliary muscle, and the capillary network produces the aqueous humor. Ciliary muscles are smooth muscles that are attached to the crystalline lens. Okay, these muscles, these suspensory ligaments, these are actually ciliary muscles that attach to the lens. Actually, ciliary muscle attached to the lens with the help of suspensory ligaments. Okay, this suspensory ligament also known as ciliary jonule. This lens is a transparent structure made up of transparent cell and that lose their nucleus and organelle during development. Okay, so these are cells are transparent cells which do not have nuclei and organelles when they develop. So due to the lack of DNA, they are not having DNA, they will not be able to synthesize protein also. So mature lens cannot regenerate or repair themselves. That's why when a person grow older, the lens grow larger and thicker and it becomes far less elastic, partly because of progressive degeneration of lens proteins, and the ability of lens to change shape decreases with age. Okay, ciliary muscles, the ciliary body will produce ciliary muscles. They will also regulate the strength of the lens, and this ability to adjust the strength of the lens is known as accommodation. Now the strength of this lens will depend upon its shape, which is regulated by ciliary muscles. Okay, When ciliary muscles are relaxed, suspensory ligaments will pull the lens and make it flat. Okay, but when the muscles contract, then this lens becomes spherical. The greater curvature of spherical lens increases its strength. Remember, greater curvature of spherical lens will increase its strength. When we talk about the eye of a normal person, then ciliary muscle is relaxed and the lens is normally flat for far vision. Okay, for far vision, ciliary muscles are relaxed and a lens is flat. Okay, but when eye focuses on on an object, okay, on a near object, for near object, ciliary muscles will contract and they will also cause the lens to become convex. Okay, cause the muscles lens to become convex, and for far vision the lens is relaxed. Oh, you understand it? So when the eye is focused on near object, ciliary muscle will adjust the focal length in such a way that image is again formed on the retina and we see the object clearly. So this process of adjusting focal length is called accommodation. You understand what is accommodation? The process of adjusting focal length is called accommodation. Okay. So interior surface of eye opposite to the lens. Okay, I'll show you. The interior surface of the eye opposite to the lens is called fundus. Okay, it includes your it is called fundus. It will have what? Retina, optic disc, macula, fovea. Okay, ophthalmoscope is used for for viewing the fundus part of the eye. Retina is the light sensitive part. Okay, inner layer of the eye that covers about 65% of its interior surface. Okay, retina will form the inner layer of eye. So it will have three types of retinal layers, are actually three layer. An outermost layer, okay, which are contain of photoreceptor cells, which will be rods and cones. Okay, and then this is the back of eye. It will have rods and cones. Fine. This is sclera, choroid, pigmented epithelium, rods and cones nuclei. These are the bipolar cells, these are ganglion cells, these are nerve fiber and the vitreous body. Okay. This is the front of the eye, this is the back of the eye. This is the front of the eye. Okay. Is it the back of the eye? Okay, from outer we start with outermost layer closest to the choroid will contain photoreceptor cells which are photosensitive. These are rods and cones, and then there are inner middle layer of bipolar cells. This is the bipolar cells, transmission of rod signals, transmission of cone signals. Okay, then there is also a horizontal cell, amacrine cell. Okay, and this is your now ganglion cell. Innermost is the ganglionic cell. Axon of ganglionic cell will join to form the optic nerve, and the point at the retina at which the optic nerve leaves and through which blood vessel pass is the optic disc or blind spot. Okay, this is the blind spot. Okay, this is the blind spot. So I'm telling you what is a blind spot exactly. The point at which the optic nerve leaves and through which blood vessel pass in the optic disc. It is the blind spot. This region is called blind spot, and no image can be detected in this area because it has no rods and cones. Yellowish pigmented spot called macula lutea. Okay, macula lutea. This is the yellowish spot. Okay, you can see macula lutea. It is located in the center of the posterior portion of the retina. Okay, and a small depression in its center is called fovea centralis, and this fovea centralis is densely packed with cones, and visual acuity or sharpness as of vision is greatest at fovea centralis, but no vision will be there on the blind spot. Okay, clear? You are clear about these cones? Let me also tell you about the chamber of the. I'll show you this image again. This is the vitreous chamber. This is the aqueous humor. Okay, anterior chamber. So human eye can also be divided into two main segments. This is the anterior segment, this is the posterior segment. Aqueous is present in the anterior segment. Okay, so anterior segment have like a cornea and iris, while posterior chamber is between your eyes and lens. Okay, iris and lens. Posterior chamber is between your like what I'm telling you, anterior segment has two chambers, anterior chamber and posterior chamber. So anterior chamber is between cornea and iris, and the posterior chamber is between this iris and this lens. Okay, the aqueous humor is the protein that will nourish the cornea and iris, and this aqueous humor is produced by the capillary network within the ciliary body. And posterior segment, which will your posterior segment, okay, I'm not talking about the other one, posterior segment of the eye, not of your posterior segment of anterior, your aqueous humor. Okay, your anterior segment have anterior chamber and posterior chamber, and this is the posterior segment. Anterior segment, anterior chamber and posterior chamber in your anterior segment, and then posterior segment, which is also known as vitreous chamber and is filled with vitreous humor, and it extend between the lens and the retina. Vitreous humor fill the vitreous chamber. It is a gelatinous mass, and it will help in maintaining the spherical shape of the eyeball. Lens is based on one side of aqueous humor and supported by other side by vitreous humor. Okay, so it has no blood supply but metabolically active, so it contains nutrients and from the aqueous humor. So remember, vitreous humor will contain the like your lens will contain its nutrient from the aqueous humor. Okay, now let's talk about protective mechanism of eye. You know about it now. So there are many mechanisms that will protect the part of the eye from injury, like eyelids. There are lacrimal glands. Okay, a lacrimal gland will produce tears. Okay, then frequent spontaneous blinking of your eye, all this helps in lubricating, cleansing bacteria. Okay, then there are lysozymes in your tear that will kill the bacteria. There are fluid that will clean, lubricate and moist the eyeball. Eyes also have eyelashes which will trap fine airborne debris such as dust before it can fall into the eye. Okay, now you also know about photoreceptor cells. You can see these are the ganglion, these are the bipolar. I have told you about bipolar nucleon. These are the horizontal cells here, and then photoreceptor cells here. Now let me show you rods and cones. Now look at them clearly. There are two types of rods and cones. So the cells are distinguished by their shape, type of photopigment they contain, and distribution across the retina, and the pattern of synaptic connections. Each photoreceptor is divided into an outer segment. Even the cone is divided into outer segment and an inner segment that includes nuclear region. Okay, and that will include your inner segment, that will include your nuclear segment and synaptic terminal. Okay, the outer segment will detect the stimulus. Segment will detect the stimulus, and inner segments, they are rich in mitochondria, and this region synthesizes photosensitive compounds. A synaptic terminal stores the released neurotransmitter. The outer segment in rods and cone-shaped cones. The outer segment is rod-shaped. You can see in rods, and cone-shaped in cones. That's why they are known as rods and cones. Each rod will have a stack of a disc that are flattened membrane-bound intracellular organelles. Cone have a thick inner segment. You can see cone have a thick inner segment and conical outer segment, although their morphology varies from place to place in the retina. Sacules of the cones are formed by infolding of the membrane of outer segment. Okay, there will be sacculae formed due to the inner folding of this membrane. Okay, sacculae and disc contain the light sensitive photopigments. Photopigment undergo chemical alterations when activated by the light. Rods allow us to see in the dim light because they do not provide color vision. In dim light, we can only see black and white shades or gray shades. Brighter light stimulate cones. They will produce color vision. The type of cones are like in retina are blue cones, which are sensitive to blue light, green cones sensitive to green light, red cones sensitive to red light. Color vision will result from the stimulation of various combination of these three types of cone. The protective pigment in the in the rod is for rhodopsin, and rhodopsin will be composed of retinal plus opsin. Retinal is the aldehyde of vitamin A, and opsin is a transmembrane protein. Opsin is actually the member of GPCR, your G protein coupled receptor. Retinal is the light absorbing part of the photopigment. In cones, there are three types of opsins that combine with retinal to form pigment called photopsins, like idopsins, rhodopsins, okay, synopsins. These are present, these opsins are present in the cones, but there is only one type of opsin in the rods. Okay, you understand? I will tell you about the operation of photoreceptor now. I hope you are very clear about rods and cones. Remember, in fovea, only cones are present while rods are not present. And rods do not respond. They have slow response to light while cones have a fast response to light. Okay. Rods have only one type of photosensitive pigment, while cones have three type of photosensitive pigments. Cone will give us the color vision, while rods will give us the black and white vision. Okay, now let's talk about operation of photoreceptors. The process of converting light stimulus into electrical signal is what we call phototransduction. Okay, so event that will occur in rods will be same as that of cone, except cone will absorb the light in different parts of visible spectrum. Okay, we will use like your rod as an example. Now let's check out the sequence of event in photoreceptor cells by which incident light will lead to the production of signal in the retina. It is summarized here in this flowchart. In the dark, retinal in rhodopsin is in the cis formation. Okay, cis configuration, 11 cis configuration. When this 11 cis retinal will absorb light, it changes into all trans retinal configuration. This in turn will alter the configuration of opsin, and that changes activates the G protein. Okay, the changes will activate the G protein transducin. Okay, so transducin is now activated. All cis retinal is now converted to all trans configuration. It's separate from opsin in a process called bleaching. Active transducin in turn activate the intracellular enzyme phosphodiesterase, and the enzyme converts cyclic GMP into GMP. Okay, so decreased intracellular GMP will be there. Fine. In the presence of light, the reduction in cyclic GMP permit the ligand-gated sodium channels to close. Decreased cytosolic sodium concentration cause hyperpolarization, and the your hyperpolarization will lead to the closure of voltage gated calcium ion channels and subsequent reduction in the release of neurotransmitter glutamate from the synaptic terminal. Thus, photoreceptors are inhibited by light. The brighter the light, the greater the hyperpolarizing response and greater the reduction in glutamate release. Fine. And what happened in direct? See, all the retinal will be when converted to transduction will be inactive, photodiesterase will be inactivated, increased intracellular cyclic GMP, opening of sodium channel, depolarization, and there will be increased release of neurotransmitter in case of dark. Okay, this is how the operation of photoreceptor cells takes place. Remember this thing again, all trans will be converted, all cis will be converted into all trans. Okay, and then this will change the configuration of conformation of opsin and chain activate the G protein transduction. Okay, and then after 11 cis retinal is converted into all trans configuration, it will separate from the opsin. Okay, 11 cis retinal will when it convert into all trans configuration, it will separate from the opsin, and the process is called bleaching. An active transducin will now activate the intracellular enzyme, this phosphodiesterase, which will convert cyclic GMP into GMP. This will result in closure of sodium channel. Now this will result into hyperpolarization, and there will be decreased release of neurotransmitter, and you won't be able to see. Okay, so let's now talk about image formation. Light rays. Okay, you now understand about these are the refraction abnormalities, but let me tell you about image formation. Light rays are refracted when they pass from a medium of one density into a medium of different density. As light ray enters the eye, they are actually refracted at the surface of cornea. Okay, when they enter the eye, they are actually refracted at the surface of cornea. Okay, so and the anterior and posterior surface of the lens also. Okay, In the same manner that a glass lens can focus on image on a sheet of paper, the lens system of eye focus the image on retina. Fine. The image is inverted and reversed with respect to the object. Remember this thing. Image is inverted and reversed. However, the mind perceives object in the upright position despite the upside down orientation on the retina, because brain is trained to consider an inverted image as the normal. Remember this thing. You should have asked me why, if you are saying that the image formed our retina is inverted, then why do we see the exact image? Like, we do not see inverted image because our brain is trained to consider an inverted image as the normal. Let's talk about refraction abnormalities first now. Emetropia. The eye is considered to be normal if parallel light rays from distant object are clearly focused on the retina when the ciliary muscle is completely relaxed. This means that ametropic eye can see all the distant object clearly with its ciliary muscles relaxed. For normal eye, the far point could be at infinity. However, to focus object to close range, eye must contract its ciliary muscles and thereby provide appropriate degrees of accommodation. The nearest point for which the image can be focused on retina is called near point of the eye, and it is generally 25 centimeter. Okay, for normal eye it is 25 centimeter. For many people, they lack the ability of okay, of refraction abnormalities. Okay, many people, however, lack this ability because of the refraction abnormalities. Among these abnormalities are myopia, okay, and hypermyopia, hyperopia, or hypermetropia, also known as this. Okay, myopia. Myopia occurs when the eyeball is too long. Okay, when the eyeball is too long. Okay, and the one thing is that eyeball is too long relative to the focusing power of the cornea and the lens, or when the lens is thicker than normal. Okay, when the lens is thicker, as you can see, it's not thicker that much, thick. When the lens is thicker, so there will be what? The image will converge in front of the retina. Okay, the image will converge in front of the retina. You understand or not? Image will converge in front of the retina in case of myopia. Fine. Then, by placing the biconcave lens in front of the eye, it will cause the right rays to diverge slightly before striking the eye, so that they are brought to focus on the retina. Okay, you can, it is diverging here, it is converging here. You have to see it by focusing so much, but it is diverging here, it is converging here. Okay, by placing the biconcave lens. So to prevent this, like to overcome, we cannot completely overcome, but to overcome myopia, we use biconcave lens. Hypermetropia or hyperopia, it occurs when the eyeball length is short relative to that of focusing power of the cornea and the lens, or lens is thinner than the normal. Okay, so the image converges behind the camera. So the image converges, you can see, behind the camera. Okay, so hypermetropic individual can see the distant object clearly but not close one, and the distance of clear vision becomes larger than 25 centimeters. So a biconvex lens is placed and hypermetropia is now prevented, like it is cured, kind of cured, I can say. Okay, so defect can also arise if the ciliary muscle become weak and are not able to strain enough to reduce the focal length to appropriate value. So when far-sightedness develops due to this reason. This is also known as presbyopia, hyperopia, hypermetropia, or far-sightedness. Okay, another refraction abnormality is astigmatism, in which either the cornea or the lens has irregular curvature. Okay, so as a result, part of the image are not out of focus and thus vision is blurred or distorted. Such a person cannot see all the direction equally well. Fine, that's all for today. If you want to join Unacademy, you can, you can also take the subscription of Unacademy. You can use the referral code NEHA. Along with this, you do not forget to subscribe to our channel, and you can also join us anywhere else if you want to. Just check out the description box. That's all for today. In next lecture, we will cover the year.